Golden Straw. Chapter 4. I woke to shouts of joy. My eyes opened to see Ronald dancing around his pile of gold straw. I finished half of it as I planned while I slept on the rest. I knew your father wasn't joking, he cried happily. Take me back to my room, please. I did what you asked. Now get me my day with the king, I demanded. Ronald stared at me with cold eyes. Of course, your highness. Of course. You should know that this is the only reason you're still here. I'll be coming back tonight to bring you here. You do it until the king asks for your hand in marriage. Then he smirked. Did I forget to mention that you're not the only girl here? Better go and get dressed before they steal his heart before you, and you better hope he doesn't find out you're a rotten witch. If I didn't already hate him, I despised him now, something I hadn't said about someone before in my entire life. Not only was he greedy but a dirty hypocrite. It didn't matter if I really was a witch or not, Ronald knew the gold was created by magic. Magic had been outlawed in Amishi, yet here he was, the advisor to the king, getting rich off wizard enchantments. I walked out of the room briskly, but before I could make it to the stairs, I heard Ronald say to me, "Remember what I told you if your tongue slips." Without saying anything back, I ran up the stairs and to my room where I slammed the door and sank to the floor. If my father only knew what he got me into. There had to be a way to get out of this. A way to tell the king without tipping Ronald off and sounding like a crazy person. There was a tap at the door and a familiar voice that said, "Sammy? You in there?" I rushed to my feet and flung the door open. Standing there was Eliza, just beaming as she crashed into me. She hugged me tightly and cheered. "I told you, didn't I tell you? You got the king's attention." I pulled her off so I could look into her eyes. "What are you doing here, Elle?" A bunch of girls including myself were brought to the castle. "We all heard the news of you going and we're excited for you." Next thing we knew, in the middle of the night, that Ronald fellow came to our houses and rounded us up here. I tried telling him I didn't want to go because I was in love already, but he didn't seem to care. I sighed and walked to the foot of the bed I thought I would be sleeping in the night before. "That's because he doesn't care. He's using me," I said in a hushed voice. Eliza tilted her head. "What? How?" "My father told him I could turn straw into gold." Her expression went wild as she followed me, "And he believed you could do that? Did he force you to do it or something?" "I don't understand." "He locked me up in a room with a spinning wheel and straw. If I turned half of it into gold then he would give me a day with the king. Now he has brought all these other girls to distract him. The only way to stop it is if the king marries me." Eliza shook her head and marched to the door. "Then we'll tell the king about this." I grabbed her and said quietly, "Don't. He has power, Eliza. He is the king's advisor. You just can't say things like that out of the blue." Her hidden feistiness leaked out from her lips. "Why on F not?" She jerked her hand away to continue to the door. It opened before she got there. Ronald stood in front of the opening and stared at Eliza and me. "Listen to your friend now. You brought yourself into a big mess, my dear. You're under the same circumstances as her. If you speak, you'll regret it." Eliza watched as Ronald walked off. She shut the door and looked back at me. "His threats sound empty to me. I think we can outsmart him. First step, you win the king's heart and then get him away from Ronald. From now on we share this burden." I smiled. "We kinda have to after he caught us." "I'm sorry I told you." "Oh please, I would have found out one way or another, and your puffy eyes are a dead giveaway. Not much you can do there. Now let's make you look like a princess." The next 2 days were bad luck. Every time I saw the king he was taken away by another girl. Eliza assured me that she had seen him trying to get to me with no success. She had become my greatest comfort, and I told her every detail from the point I met the king to where we were. We were both worried about the next night. The magic potion would no longer work. At least I wasn't alone in the cellar room anymore since Ronald took both Eliza and me down there. The sun had fallen and we found ourselves with a new heaping pile of straw that he expected to be done by morning, all of it. Knowing the spinning wheel wouldn't work, we sat there for a long time wondering what we were going to do. Just as we started planning a way to escape, the same man from before came out of the darkness. He scared the life out of us. He only replied with a chuckle. "Seems as if you wasted your 2 days, what you gonna do now?" he said, pacing around the room. Eliza glanced at my necklace and nodded. I bit my lip and took the necklace off. I held it out to the man. He bounced to us and snatched the necklace from me. He placed it in his robes, danced over to the spinning wheel, and then dripped 3 drops of potion on top of the spinning wheel. He walked over to the darkness and vanished. Quickly, Eliza ran to the corner, but sure enough, she didn't find him there. We began our work, and we finished the whole pile by the morning. Ronald was more charmed by the gold than ever. "Don't you think you have enough?" Eliza questioned him. He turned slowly to her. "I'll have enough when I'm more powerful than the king. He is a selfish boy who doesn't listen to a word I say or what his father said before me. It is all about him. He thinks purity isn't what we've made it out to be. That witches and wizards are just like us. Do you not realize that this is magic? You're a hypocrite," I shouted. Eliza restrained me before I went to claw his eyes out. If there was one thing I hated, it was when people went against their own words. And I could tell Eliza almost wanted to let me fight him, but she knew better than that. He could kill us both and destroy our families. We went up the stairs and to our rooms to get ready instead. It was then that there was a knock at my door. I opened it to a crack and peeked through to see it was the king. His smile seemed amused by my shy manner. Embarrassed, I opened the door fully and bowed, "Your." Before I could finish properly addressing him, he took my hand and yanked me out of my room and down the long corridor. Soon I had to start running so I wouldn't trip. Luckily for me, I still hadn't put on my heels, so the run was easy enough. Then again it would become a problem. How much shame would I bring upon my family appearing barefoot before the king? Finally, we slowed down and got to a door. He looked around to make sure no one was following us, then he opened the door and stepped inside with me along for the ride. He shut the door behind us as I marveled at the hall of paintings before me. It was by far the most beautiful room I had seen in the castle. "You told me you used to paint, so I thought you might like the gallery," the king said, then he laughed, out of breath. "I feel like I'm 16 again, avoiding Ronald like this." I caught on to his last words. Ronald didn't know we were here, which meant this was my chance. "Your Majesty," I began. "Liam," he said. "Huh?" I asked confused, what was that? The king closed his eyes and said firmly again, "My name is Liam." "Oh," I said with a blush, "King Liam, right. How could I forget something like that?" He laughed too and the sound came deep within his chest. It moved my heart to the point I knew I had fallen for him, his smiles, and how I felt safe around him. The only thing that stood in the way was Ronald. "Not only are you pretty and smart, but downright adorable," he said, starting to walk down the hall of paintings, Queen Samantha of the Mills. I blinked, now understanding what he was trying to get across. I was so distracted with Ronald, I hardly understood what the king was hinting at. I wondered if this was what love was. When someone could totally boggle your mind with a laugh. We reached the end of the paintings. The rest of the hall was blank. I looked at him and asked, "Why do they suddenly stop?" "The rest is for me and my wife to fill. All the paintings here were chosen by or done by the past queens. A few were chosen by the kings, but not very many. The gallery is the room all enjoy, but few get to see it or know about it." The hall ended leading to another door. Liam opened it and revealed the ballroom in the beautiful morning light. It was like the paintings from the other room came to life. I held my hand to my mouth. I stepped out onto the floor, now remembering I had no shoes on. The floor was slick and cold from the freezing night. I quickly drew my foot back, but Liam noticed my bare feet. This time he completely lost it and laughed so hard I thought he was choking. "I am so sorry. I didn't know you weren't wearing shoes," he laughed. I smiled. "It's fine really." Once again I was cut off as he swept me in his arms like a baby who wore layers and layers of fabric. My bare feet dangled in the air, and he spun us around the room. I held tightly onto him, hoping he wouldn't drop me. When he grew tired he set me down, but he kept his arms around me. I left mine around his neck. I knew I should tell him what Ronald was doing and planning. It was the perfect time to inform him when the wicked man wasn't around, but Liam leaned forward. It felt so natural, that I started to lean in too, but then I backed away. I looked down at his feet as I said, "Wait, I need to tell you something. You probably won't believe me, but this is the one chance I have." My eyes went back to his, only to find another pair to the side. My heart sank. "Sire!" Ronald shouted, coming towards us, "There you are. I was beginning to worry you left the grounds." And just like that, he pulled Liam away. I was right about it being my only chance. The next day I only got to see the back of the king's head as he paraded off with a duke's daughter. I wondered if the king was playing with all the girls. How many had he taken to the gallery? Would he really marry me? What happens when he doesn't? Will Ronald lock me away for good? My life had become a nightmare, and I didn't want to bet on the scrawny wizard coming back a third time. Besides, I had nothing left to give him.